Welcome to FilmIn5D, the show about everything film and the 5D Mark II, and the last episode about the iPhone 4S. I am your host, Aaron Hammock. This week, I talk about some of the issues I faced with the iPhone over the past month, as well as my overall opinion on the device and some accessory ideas.
Issues?
Yeah, just a few.
I'm gonna need some popcorn for this one.
Hey, it's a camera phone, man. I mean, what do you expect? So for the past month, as you might have noticed, we've been filming the skits with the iPhone 4S, and I have to say, for the most part I was impressed with the picture quality that this phone produces. But at the same time, I ran into some very serious issues. The biggest issue I had was consistently locking frame rate. The iPhone likes to vary its frame rate depending on how much light you are letting in. Like if I was shooting outside, the shutter would compensate for the extra light, and thus the frame rate would go up to 30 FPS. Or if I was shooting in poor lighting conditions, the camera would shoot at 24 FPS. In fact, when we were shooting this skit, I was using the app Almost DSLR to get my footage. And when I got in post, I realized that some of the footage was at 24 FPS and some was at 30 FPS. And to be honest, I had no clue why, so I did some research on the internet and I couldn't find anything. So I did my own lighting test to find out, why the frame rate was varying, and it was in fact the amount of light coming in that determines your frame rate, because it has to compensate for the shutter speed the iPhone does. Now obviously for filmmakers this is a no-go. I mean, you really need to be able to manually control each of your settings, and frame rate is one of those things that you really can't vary within a project. Obviously you can change the frame rate from 30 FPS to 24 FPS in post, but in my experience it never turns out quite right, which is why I'd recommend using the app FilmIn5D Pro to anyone seriously considering to film with the iPhone. It's the only app that to my knowledge can lock the frame rate within the phone. Which leads to my next issue, the saving problem with FilmIn5D Pro, which I briefly mentioned in a previous episode, but experienced for the first time when filming this sketch. I think it took us about 10 takes before the app actually saved the video file, which for us wasn't the biggest deal since we were shooting on a green screen, but if you're on location, definitely be careful and make sure that everything you film gets saved. More than likely, this is an issue with the app itself, so until the developers fixed it, there are no real solutions. But in my opinion, I found that the best way to avoid this is by keeping your clips under 5 minutes, because it seems that I was mainly having the issue when my clip was over 5 minutes. Another issue that many people are having is a juddering effect, which becomes especially apparent with pans. This occurs more when you have a quick pan and you don't have image stabilization activated. When using Almost DSLR, I was able to lessen the juddering effect with the image stabilization. But of course if you use Almost DSLR, you can't lock the frame rate. The final issue that I was running into, particularly in our last two skits, is that it's very hard to get two faces in focus at the same time, even if they're the same distance from the camera. Now there are ways to trick the focus system, like by having one of your actors hold up their hand between the two of them and focusing on that point, but it never turns out quite right. Now with all these issues, there is one bright spot. The picture quality of this thing, I mean considering that it's a phone, is pretty amazing. I have so many reasons why I choose my 5D over it, but when you consider that its picture quality is comparable to a $3,000 setup, it's pretty amazing.
Wait, you forgot the biggest issue.
What?
It's an iPhone.
In fact, I have another challenge for our subscribers. I'm going to show you some clips and I want you to tell me in order what camera I was using for each clip. Leave your answer in the comment section below, and the first one to guess right gets a mention on next week's episode.
Can you even call it a challenge?
What?
I don't know. iPhone, really, dude?
Well, I mean, it's like similar. Okay, fine. You get to do the challenge this time, okay?
All right.
You can try to guess. You were even with me, and I bet you won't guess right. Alright, so like I said before, guess right and get a mention on next week's episode. Now some of these clips were definitely easier to differentiate from one another, but some not so much, which speaks to my point from earlier that the picture quality between the iPhone 4S and the 5D is pretty close. I think that if, like people are predicting, someone develops a hack to make the iPhone 4S capable of 4K video recording, we'll see a lot more people using it for commercial projects, including myself. The final thing I'd like to mention today is some accessory ideas. Now, I didn't actually buy any accessories because I don't plan to use this as a camera beyond the behind the scenes footage, but there are two that you should definitely consider if you're planning to use this as your main camera. The first accessory that is absolutely essential is a tripod adapter. Now, these come in all types of flavors. Some require apps and give you additional control, and some are simply for mounting on a tripod. And the second accessory is the Olo clip, which gives you more variety on the go, allowing for a more artistic range of shots, including a wide-angle lens, fisheye, and macro lenses. But that's it for this week. Send your questions to me via @mentions on twitter.com/AaronHammock, and follow the show's Twitter @FilmIn5D, like us on Facebook, and make sure to leave a comment below for this week's challenge. We'll be back next week with some basic audio tips.
No iPhone?
No iPhone. We're done with the iPhone.
Yes. Oh, thank you, dude.
Maybe in the future, maybe when 4K comes out, or I get my hands on an Olo clip, or something new comes about.
I don't know, dude. Working with that was pretty hard.
Yeah, it was hard, especially the saving issues. That was probably the biggest issue.
Yeah.
And then the juddering effect. We didn't film outside too much. Like, I think you really need to film outside with these to get like the full picture quality. Like inside, it's not. You can't compare it to DSLR. Like DSLRs are known for inside shooting. But the iPhone, outside, it's really close to the 5D. I thought. At the end of the day. See you next week. Yes. And to be honest, I had no clue why. And I even did some research online to find out why it may have varied, and I didn't find anything. So I did a lighting test, and I realized that it was in fact the amount of light coming into... Peak, dude.